The prescription came in at 11:04 p.m. on a Thursday in November. Nora was the only technician on the floor. Craig, the pharmacy manager, was in the back office finishing the inventory count he had been trying to finish since 7 o'clock. The pharmacy closed at midnight. Nora had 56 minutes left in her shift, which she knew precisely because she always knew precisely, because her mother's last bus home was at 12:40 and her mother needed to be on it. She pulled the prescription from the queue and read it. The patient was Arthur Marsh, 79 years old, existing customer, 2 active medications on file. The prescription was for a blood thinner, a specific dosage, a specific formulation, written by a Dr. Elaine Purcell, whose name was in the system as Arthur's cardiologist. The prescription was not wrong in any way that the system flagged. It passed the automatic interaction check. It was correctly formatted, correctly signed, correctly transmitted. Nora read it twice. Then she opened Arthur's medication file and looked at his current prescriptions. She looked at the new prescription. She looked at his file again. The dosage was double what Arthur's weight and age and kidney function, noted in his file from a pharmacist consultation 8 months ago, should have supported. Not slightly elevated. Double. The kind of number that was either a physician making a specific and documented clinical decision or a physician making a mistake. There was no clinical note in the file. There was no recent lab update. There was nothing in Arthur's record that explained why his cardiologist would double his blood thinner dosage on a Thursday evening without a corresponding note. Nora set the prescription down. She went to the back office. She said, "Craig, I have a question about the Marsh prescription." Craig looked at her over his reading glasses. He said, "What's the issue?" She explained. She was specific. The weight, the kidney function note, the dosage, the absence of clinical documentation. She gave it to him in the precise language of someone who has spent 11 years paying attention and knows how to communicate what she has noticed. Craig looked at his inventory count. He looked at the clock. He said, "The doctor signed it. It passed the interaction check. Fill it." Nora said, "I'd like to reach the prescribing physician first." Craig said, "It's 11 p.m., Nora. Fill it." She went back to the counter. Before we continue, if you believe that doing the right thing at midnight when nobody is watching and nobody will know is one of the bravest things a person can do, please like this video, subscribe to Kindness Tales, and share this with someone who needs to believe in people again today. She stood at the counter for a moment. She looked at the prescription. She looked at Arthur's file. She looked at the clock, 11:12. She did not fill it. She took her own phone from her coat pocket, the one with the cracked corner and the Halloween wallpaper, and she called the number listed in Arthur's file as his primary physician's after-hours line. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. She left a message, her name, the pharmacy, the prescription in question, the specific concern, her callback number, and the words, "Please call as soon as possible. This is urgent." She called the cardiologist's office. After-hours service. She left the same message. She sat down on the stool behind the counter. She waited. The pharmacy closed at midnight. Craig came out of the back at 11:58 and looked at the prescriptions still in the queue. He looked at Nora. He said, "You didn't fill it." She said, "I'm waiting for a call back." He said, "Your shift ended 2 minutes ago. I'll handle it." She said, "I'll stay." He said, "Nora." She said, "I'll stay." He looked at her for a moment. Then he went to get his coat. He said, "Lock up at 12:30. The drawer code is the same." And he left. She sat behind the counter of an empty pharmacy at midnight with her own phone in her hand and Arthur Marsh's prescription in front of her, and the particular silence of a building that has closed for the night settling around her. She thought about her mother waiting. She thought about her children asleep at her mother's house, Maya 9 and Thomas 7, who would be up at 6:30 and would want pancakes, and would not know that their mother had spent the night in an empty pharmacy on a stool because a number on a piece of paper was wrong. She called the after-hours service again at 12:14. She left a second message. She used the words, "I believe this prescription may cause a serious adverse event in this patient tonight if filled without physician review." She said it clearly, without drama, the way you say something when you need it to be heard. The callback came at 12:31. The physician on call was not Dr. Purcell. It was her covering colleague, a Dr. Adeyemi, who had taken the after-hours messages and called back. He asked Nora to repeat the prescription details. She did. He was quiet for a moment. He said, "Hold on." She heard him on another line. She heard the specific sound of a person doing something with focused urgency. He came back. He said, "The dosage in that prescription is an error." Dr. Purcell was adjusting a different patient's file this evening, and the wrong patient record was open when the prescription was transmitted. Arthur Marsh's correct dosage is half of what was written. Nora said, "I need that in writing before I can make any changes to the file." He said, "I'll send the correction now. And I need you to give me Arthur Marsh's home number from his file." She read it to him. He said, "We need to make sure he hasn't filled this elsewhere tonight, and we need to make sure he's all right." She said, "I'll wait." She waited. The pharmacy was very quiet. Outside the windows, a parking lot, a November night, the particular emptiness of a commercial street after midnight. She sat on her stool and waited and did not think about the bus her mother had not caught, and did not think about the pancakes in the morning, and thought only about a phone ringing in the home of a 79-year-old man at 12:34 in the morning, and whether he would answer it. Arthur Marsh answered on the second ring. He had not filled the prescription elsewhere. He had not taken anything. He was confused by the late call, but he was alive, and he was fine. And Dr. Adeyemi spoke to him for 4 minutes while Nora listened, and confirmed that the corrected prescription would be available in the morning. She locked up at 12:51. She drove to her mother's. Her mother was asleep in the chair by the door, had been asleep, Nora suspected, since 12:15, and had not noticed the bus she had not caught. Nora stood in the doorway and looked at her mother asleep in the chair, and at the dark hall beyond where her children were sleeping, and she thought about the number on the prescription and the 11 minutes between when she set it down and when she called the first number. She had not been required to make those 11 minutes matter. She had made them matter anyway. She did not tell anyone at the pharmacy what had happened. She wrote the standard notation in the log: prescription held pending physician review, correction received, file updated. And she went back to her shifts, and she did not think about it in the way that people think about things they are waiting for someone to notice. She did not wait for anyone to notice. She had done what was correct. The correctness of it did not require an audience. 3 months later, on a Tuesday afternoon in February, a man came into the pharmacy at 3:45 and asked to speak to the night shift technician who had been on duty the Thursday before Thanksgiving. The day pharmacist, uncertain, came to find Nora, who was just arriving for her shift. She came to the counter still in her coat, ponytail half done, the rubber hair tie on her wrist. The man said, "Are you Nora?" She said, "Yes." He said, "My name is David Marsh. Arthur Marsh is my father." She looked at him. She said, "Is he all right?" He said, "He's fine. He's very well, actually." He said the word "actually" with a specific weight, the weight of someone for whom very well had not been a certainty 3 months ago. He said, "Dr. Adeyemi told me what happened. It took me 3 months to find out who made the call. The pharmacy logs just said prescription held. They didn't record who held it or why or what happened after. I had to go back through the after-hours call records." She said, "You didn't need to do that." He said, "No, I needed to do that." He looked at her, the white coat, the ponytail, the rubber hair tie on the wrist, the watch with the second hand. He said, "My father would have taken that prescription to an all-night pharmacy on his way home from his card game. He goes every Thursday. He would have filled it that night. With his kidney function and his current medications, Dr. Adeyemi told me the internal bleeding would have presented within 6 hours." Nora said nothing. He said, "Nobody required you to make that call." She said, "No." He said, "Your supervisor told you to fill it." She said, "Yes." He said, "Why didn't you?" She was quiet for a moment. She said, "Because the number was wrong. And a wrong number on a prescription is someone's father." He stood at the counter. He was a man who had spent 30 years in a profession that required the precise use of language, and he did not, in this moment, have the precise language. He said, "I want to do something. I'm not sure what the right thing is." She said, "Is your father well?" He said, "He is. He's been on the correct dosage since that Friday. He's doing very well." She said, "Then that's the thing." He said, "I want to do more than that." She looked at him, the wool coat, the gray at his temples, the specific grief of the past 3 months still present in his eyes alongside something that was trying to become relief. She said, "My daughter wants to be a pharmacist. She's 9. She told me last month she wants to do what I do." He said, "What do you need for that?" She said, "A college fund she doesn't know about yet." He said, "Done. What else?" She said, "That's enough." He said, "Is it?" She said, "Mr. Marsh." I sat on a stool in an empty pharmacy until 12:51 in November because a number was wrong. I did not do it for anything that comes after. I did it because it was the right thing to do at midnight when nobody was watching. If you give my daughter a future because of that, then the midnight becomes the beginning of something she'll carry into every prescription she ever fills. That's more than enough. He looked at her for a long moment. He said, "Your daughter is lucky." She said, "I know." He extended his hand. She shook it, her small, precise hand in his, across the pharmacy counter, in the ordinary fluorescent light of a Tuesday afternoon in February. He left. She finished putting her hair up. She went to the counter and logged into the system. The queue had 17 prescriptions in it. She started with the first one. She read it twice. If this story moved you, please like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to Kindness Tales for more stories of courage, grace, and the small human decisions that turn out to matter more than anyone knew. And tell us in the comments, have you ever done the right thing when nobody would have known if you hadn't?